Hello, good evening, viewers. Market Headlines is ready to provide you a number of information from business, economic, and capital market sector. And as the pandemic is still going on, we will provide you the latest COVID-19 information. So please stay safe by taking some simple precautions such as physical distancing, wearing masks, avoiding crowds, cleaning your hands, and having less mobility. With me, Lantai, and this is Market Headline. The government ensures to continue maintaining medium-long-term economic growth target. The Ministry of National Development Planning is still optimistic that the economy can grow by 6% after COVID-19 pandemic to ensure that Indonesia is free from middle-income trap.
The COVID-19 pandemic, which has hit the health sector and the economy, has not made the government forget its long-term development targets. The Ministry of National Development Planning, or Bappenas, remains optimistic that Indonesia can become a developed country in 2045. According to Bappenas, after the pandemic can be passed, Indonesia needs an average economic growth of 6% per year to achieve this target. Deputy for Maritime Affairs and Natural Resources at the Ministry of National Development Planning, Arifin Rudianto, in the 2021 ESG Capital Markets Summit webinar, explained that sustainable development will provide a solid foundation for Indonesia to escape the middle-income trap. This is done while maintaining economic transformation, which is in line with the goals of sustainable development.
Pasca pandemi nanti dibutuhkan pertumbuhan ekonomi rata-rata 6% per tahun untuk membawa Indonesia menjadi negara maju, negara yang lepas dari middle income trap sebelum tahun 2020. Middle income trap artinya pendapatan per kapita rata-rata paling tidak 12.000 US dollar. Nah, untuk itu tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan atau SDGs ini akan memberikan landasan kokoh untuk menuju Indonesia maju. Dan selain itu juga dilakukan transformasi ekonomi.
Arifin explained that the economic recovery in the short term is not enough to make Indonesia a developed country in 2045. Indonesia's big task after the economic recovery is to carry out economic transformation in the medium and long term by intervening on the production side. Jakarta, Raharjo Patmo for IDX Channel.
Government through the Ministry of Industry keeps accelerating COVID-19 handling, and one of them is by speeding up vaccinations progress in the industrial sectors. And so far, government targets 5 million industrial workers to get vaccinated in Java and Bali.
Government believes that accelerating COVID-19 handling means that it will soon recover the economy as a whole, whereas vaccination becomes a key. Director General of Agri-Industry, Putu Juli Ardika, together with the Ministry of Health, are targeting 5 million industrial workers in Java and Bali to be vaccinated by the end of this year. For the initial stage, industrial vaccination is given to the food and beverage industry sector. The food and beverage industry in the first quarter of 2021 contributes around 37.98% to the GDP of the non-oil and gas industry.
Jadi ini adalah langkah awal program vaksinasi industri yang dicanangkan oleh pemerintah. Jadi hari ini akan diprioritaskan untuk industri. Jadi industri prioritas ini termasuk adalah industri makanan dan minuman. Jadi ada beberapa kenapa ini diprioritaskan. Yang pertama sekali bahwa masyarakat sangat membutuhkan kesediaan pangan. Yang kedua, kalau Bapak Ibu lihat, industri ini tumbuh dengan bagus dan ekspornya bagus sekali.
In addition, the total value of exports of the food and beverage industry in January to June 2021 reached around 19.58 billion US dollar. This went up 42.59% over the same period of the previous year. From Jakarta, Adi Firmansyah, IDX Channel.
Independent of Development for Economic and Finance demanded government to pay debt to hotels that become self-isolations for the COVID-19 patients.
IndiHome's program director, Esther Sri Astuti, asked the government to immediately realize the national economic recovery budget to pay debts to hotels used for self-isolation during the pandemic. According to Esther, the government must be sensitive to see the hotel sector can no longer survive due to the decline in hotel occupancy during emergency COVID-19 restriction.
Proses percepatan realisasi anggaran itu harus dilakukan oleh pemerintah, tidak hanya di pemerintah pusat tetapi juga pemerintah daerah. Karena kalau kita lihat data menunjukkan ada 21 hotel yang belum mendapatkan pembayaran dari tunggakan utang tersebut. Kalau itu dilakukan oleh pemerintah, maksud saya kalau percepatan realisasi pencairan anggaran itu dilakukan oleh pemerintah, kita tahu bahwa sektor usaha masih lesu. Nah, tentunya akan bisa membantu mereka untuk sedikit bernafas pada saat pandemi COVID-19 ini.
Furthermore, IndiHome asked, in the mid of pandemic, the government must not complicate the disbursing process. Government's swift action is needed to help the business sector survive. From Jakarta, Rizka Ayu, IDX Channel.
Moving on to the global update, the U.S. Central Bank says that the economy is making progress due to widespread vaccinations. And meanwhile, Google workers will need to be vaccinated before returning to the office. More stories on today's International Minute.
The U.S. Central Bank has said that the economy is making progress due to widespread vaccinations. The Federal Reserve kept interest rates on hold near zero, saying that inflation largely reflected factors that would pass in time, while jobs growth and the economy had strengthened. It said the central bank will continue to monitor economic progress before easing pandemic support. China is expanding its capacity to store and launch nuclear missiles, U.S. scientists say. Satellite images from Xinjiang province in the west of the country suggest it is building a nuclear missile silo field, a report from the Federation of American Scientists says. U.S. defense officials have expressed concern about China's nuclear buildup. It is the second new silo field reported to be under construction in western China in the last 2 months. International cruises will be able to start again from England from 2 August after a 16-month break. People arriving at UK ports who have been fully vaccinated in the US and the EU will also not have to quarantine, the UK government said. It is part of a plan to relax isolation rules for US and EU arrivals in the UK. An industry body say travel agencies, hotels, tour guides, port operators and other firms would benefit from cruises restarting. Google workers will need to be vaccinated before returning to the office. The policy will begin at its US campuses within weeks and then be rolled out globally for its 144,000 employees. Many firms are weighing up their stances on vaccinations. Publishers Bloomsbury said in June that vaccines would be compulsory for UK staff returning to offices when they reopen. IDX Channel reports.
Market headlines will be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Kita sempat terhenti seperti jarum jam dinding yang tidak berfungsi. Ada mereka yang jatuh, ada mereka yang sakit, ada mereka yang kehilangan, ada mereka yang meninggalkan. Mereka pergi bergerombol dalam gelombang bernama kematian. Pakai masker, harga mati. Gak pakai masker, bisa mati.
Perusahaan digital diprediksi masih menghadapi potensi gulung tikar hingga akhir tahun 2021.
Analisanya mengenai hal ini seperti apa, Pak Andito?
Ini haruslah punya perspektif yang ke sana, melihat yang jangka panjang. Nah, Hello, I'm Clara Antawijaya. I'm associate producer and news presenter on Market Headlines. As Market Headlines starts at 4:30 p.m., which is in line with the closing market, therefore we summarize market conditions only for you. And my job in here as a journalist, I give concise and accurate news for the audience. And also, being a journalist is not only a job for me, but it is also a passion. Kementerian Perindustrian menyatakan kinerja industri manufaktur di tanah air terus meningkat.
Catatan rekor 3 bulan berturut-turut.
Apa yang Bapak bisa cermati dari pergerakan indeks harga saham gabungan kemarin?
Jadi dengan kondisi itu kita melihat bahwa ruang kenaikan indeks artinya bisa kita naikkan lagi kembali kepada level 6.200 sampai 6.300.
Welcome back to Market Headline. During the COVID-19 pandemic and the related economic fallout, the response of the stock markets has raised concerns as well as the questions. There is some evidence that shareholders have favored credit facilities and government guarantees, lower policy interest rates, and also lockdown measures mitigated the economic fallout. However, fundamentals only explain a small part of the economic variations at the country level. So therefore, we are going to have further discussions with Fahrul Fulfian as the Chief Economist of Trimegah. Hello, sir.
Hello, how are you?
Very well, sir. How are you?
I am very good.
All right, sir. Seeing these conditions, it is not yet controlled as COVID-19 pandemic in Indonesia added 47,000 cases yesterday. And can you tell us about these conditions right now through economic observer's perspective?
Okay, from the economic point of view, for sure we need to realize that the social restriction or PPKM, it is likely to continue, although the government is already introducing some kind of flexibility if the case to edge lower. But indeed, at the bottom line, what we need to expect is at this quarter, at the third quarter 2021, the growth number of Indonesian economy should be lower than the second quarter, and we need to tone down the expectation on many things, especially on the recovery. And for the businessman have to recalculate again about their business plan. So now the recovery path becoming more unsure.
All right, sir. So there are a lot of uncertainties right now going on because of this pandemic. Seems like has not yet stopped to sign. And of course, we know that some regions will re-implement the PPKM level 4 from August 2nd, 2021, including Jakarta itself. So is the policy suitable, or do you think that there is another way to solve this problem?
I think from the point of view of the requirement of the social restriction, this policy is already suitable. But what we need to add to this policy is more about the social safety net, in my opinion. Because at the current situation, the one who get hit hardest by this pandemic and the social restriction is for everybody who is working at the non-formal sector of the economy. We could know that everybody who has a mom and pop store or who has a food stall, that's the part of society that are hit hardest most. So to tackle this, we think that government needs to scale up their social benefit size during this pandemic situation. And targeting not only for the one who is working at the formal sector, we need more stimulus at the non-formal sector.
Of course, more stimulus means that more energy that pull up to the government to save all the, the informal and also the formal workers in here. But then right now, sir, we have studies that have examined the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the downside risk of the stock market. So what do you have in mind about stock market?
I think if the studies is quite valid from the fundamental side, from the performance of the company, the study is valid. But in the other hand, we need to know that the main driver of the stock market nowadays is not only about the fundamental, but also about the liquidity in the financial market.
I see.
What happened is, in this COVID-19 pandemic situation, most of the people, the rich one, the one who has money, do not know what to spend during this pandemic. And so many business close their business, cut their employee, and also cut down their spending. But at the same time, more idle money. So at the current situation, we will have interesting condition where, although the economy is bad, that's not necessarily implied to the bad stock market. As we know that our stock market is quite resilient, and today the stock market is already about 6,100 again. Once again, I will emphasize that liquidity is the key at current situation.
Liquidity is the key. That's a really good sentences for you, sir. And as we know that even though the economy is kind of fall out a little bit, but then when we talk about stock market, it becomes so resilient nowadays. As we know that, in short, JCI today went up around 0.53%. So do you think that does GCI have chance to go up again, or it has chance to be lower?
Okay, at the current situation, the main support for the stock market is mostly coming from the domestic investor. The proportion of ownership in Indonesian stock market now is already dominated by the domestic investor, higher than 50%, and the trading is around 70% to 80% dominated by the retail investor. So what we miss at this current stock market situation is the presence of the foreign investor. We do expect that the GCI to go up again. Currently, our company, Trimegah, expect GCI to reach 6,700 this year. The next driver for the increase of the GCI, of the stock market, should be driven by the increase of the presence of the foreign investor. To increase the presence of the foreign investor, what we need is the presence of tech company, because worldwide currently investors have a big appetite on the tech company. So recently we already know that by next week we will have a big new tech company to be listed in the stock market, and the other one is likely to be listed later this year or early next year. I think that will be a catalyst for higher foreigner presence in our stock market, which led to higher stock price.
All right, sir. That is really interesting point that you address about the GCI movement that you think. Is this very optimistic that you stated that GCI will reach likely 6,700 by this year? Well, we know the situations right now, it's 6,120. Very optimistic of you, sir. And then, as we know...
But as I mentioned before, to make it happen, we need to have higher presence in higher presence of the foreigner in the stock market, and also new technology company in our stock market.
I see.
So as you know that Bukalapak will go into market by next week.
Yeah, because people are very, very waiting about the Bukalapak's IPO nowadays, because it's a tech IPO, and somehow investors are very favorable of the tech IPO nowadays. But we can see that there are a lot of catalysts that moving the stock exchange right now, and one of them is the national economic recovery. And to support the national economy, currently government is about to give many financial aids to people. And there are many financial aids that government has given to people to cope with the pandemic. Which aid that you think the best and efficient?
Okay, for this question, I think the best and efficient should be two different type of stimulus.
All right.
Something which is we could say efficient for the government, not necessarily a good stimulus. As we know that government stimulus currently is mostly going into a person or a family that already have a salary, but the salary is below 3.5 million. Okay, because this stimulus is going into the formal sector, it is efficient. It is an efficient policy. But how's the overall impact to the economy? The overall impact to the economy is positive, but will not be as good as if the government provide more stimulus or the social benefit to the non-formal sector. That's the best for giving to the non-formal sector, but likely less efficient, because the one who is working in the non-formal sector is not well recorded in our national data. So I suggest that to get recovered from this pandemic economically, I suggest that government for this year to put more emphasis in helping people who is working in the non-formal sector. If this situation achieved, we should have recovery in our consumption. If we look at the balanced, situation of our financial player, all the financial market is in the good shape. What the government need to help now is the one who is working at the non-formal sector.
Of course, it is very resilient, and of course, government needs to enhance social benefit for the non-formal sector. Due to the limited time, sir, I'm sorry, this is our end of conversations. Really delightful conversations. Thank you, sir, for your time with us.
Okay, you are welcome. It is my pleasure.
Thank you very much. And yes, viewers, market headlines. We'll be right back after this quick break. Stay tuned.
Kini, aplikasi mClears hadir di handphone Anda untuk memudahkan transaksi Anda. Informasi aktivitas clearing dan penjaminan tidak lagi hanya dapat diakses melalui komputer di kantor Anda, melainkan dapat diakses di mana saja dan kapan saja dalam genggaman Anda. Fitur-fitur mClears. Equity clearing dan settlement adalah fitur di mana Anda dapat melihat posisi kewajiban settlement anggota clearing hingga nilai alternate case settlement serta informasi gagal bayar. Risk management adalah fitur di mana Anda dapat melihat posisi trading limit, kolateral, MKBD, portofolio harian, risk charge anggota clearing dan kombinasi, serta nilai minimum cash collateral. Derivatif adalah fitur di mana Anda dapat melihat posisi trading limit, margin call, dan informasi clearing derivatif. Terkait pinjam-meminjam efek, terdapat fitur mengenai borrowing information dan lendable pool information, serta lending revenue dan borrowing fee. Serta menu lain yang menampilkan informasi mengenai haircut, risk charge saham, dan nilai harga penyelesaian harian dan harga penyelesaian final. Selain itu, Anda juga dapat mengakses fitur pengumuman, peraturan, dan informasi layanan KPEI pada aplikasi mClears. Download aplikasi mClears di App Store atau Google Play Store. Lakukan registrasi user Anda dengan menggunakan alamat email berdomain resmi yang sesuai dengan anggota clearing Anda. Setelah registrasi, Anda akan diberikan kode OTP di email Anda untuk verifikasi. Dan aplikasi mClears Anda siap untuk digunakan. Anda dapat mengakses seluruh menu pada aplikasi mClears dengan melakukan aktivasi berlangganan premium yang dapat dilakukan dengan memilih menu Get Premium. Download aplikasinya sekarang, lakukan registrasi, dan dapatkan kemudahan dalam genggaman tangan Anda. Kemudahan informasi KPEI dalam genggaman Anda.
Pelemahan yang terjadi di sepanjang perdagangan hari ini.
Yes, viewers, let's take a look at Jakarta Composite Index intraday movement. So earlier today, JCI was open at the level of 6,106.61 and approaching the closing time of the first session, the index was on a level of 6,104.65. And then the index was showing strengthening trend by the second session closing time. The index was closed at a level of 6,120.72. In short, JCI went up 0.53%. Bank Tabungan Negara managed to record a positive performance with a net profit in the first semester of 2021, increased by 19.87% year-on-year.
Although still under the pressure of the pandemic, Bank Tabungan Negara managed to record a positive performance with net profit in the first semester of 2021, reaching 920 billion rupiah, up 19.87% year-on-year. In a press conference, BTN management stated that per second quarter of 2021, the company recorded growth in lending and financing of 5.59% on an annual basis to 265.9 trillion rupiah. This growth was recorded to be well above the average of the national banking industry. Data from Bank Indonesia recorded that the credit growth of the national banking industry only grew by 0.45% year-on-year as of June 2021. Subsidized home ownership loans are still the main driving force for Bank BTN's lending, with an increase of 11.17% year-on-year to 126.29 trillion rupiah per second quarter. Non-subsidized mortgage grew slowly at 0.9% year-on-year to 80.59 trillion rupiah. Non-residential consumer loans also recorded an increase at the level of 17.47% year-on-year to 5.43 trillion rupiah in the second quarter of 2021. IDX Channel reports.
Step aside for market conditions as coronavirus pandemic takes big role on current economic situation. Here it is an update data about coronavirus globally. And the news close of market headlines today. Please enjoy our next program on IDX Channel, your trustworthy economic business and capital market channel. And as the COVID-19 pandemic is still going on, keep protecting your family by following health protocols, wearing face masks, keep your distance, and stay away from crowds, washing your hands often through running water. And also continue to support the vaccinations program to accelerate the creations of the herd immunity. I'm Clara Wijaya. Have a nice evening and stay safe.